You meet someone at a party. 30 seconds later, you know where they work. You know they hate their commute. You know they just got back from Portugal and they won't stop talking about the seafood. You could describe their laugh. You have no idea what their name is. It vanished the second it landed. And here's what makes that strange. You didn't struggle to remember it. You never actually had it in the first place. Somewhere between hi, I'm, and the rest of the sentence, your brain simply declined to pick it up. Most people walk away from that moment convinced something is wrong with them. Bad memory, bad with people, bad at the basics. So they apologize, they deflect, they start introducing themselves as, "Sorry, I'm terrible with names," before anyone even asks. That apology is based on a lie. Your memory is not the problem. In this video, we are going to explore what's actually happening in your brain the moment someone tells you their name, why that moment is almost designed to fail, and the 3-step method that fixes it for good. Let's start with the part that should annoy you a little, because it exposes just how arbitrary this whole system is. In 1990, a British psychologist named Gillian Cohen ran an experiment that's now famous enough to have its own name in cognitive science, the Baker versus Baker paradox. She showed 2 groups of people the same photograph of a man's face. One group was told his surname was Baker. The other group was told his occupation was Baker. Same word, same sound, same 5 letters, wildly different outcomes. The group who learned he was a baker remembered it easily. The group who learned his name was Baker forgot it constantly. Cohen wanted to know why, and the answer turns out to explain almost everything about why names slip through your fingers. When you hear baker as a job, your brain doesn't just store a word, it lights up a whole network. Flour on the counter, the smell of an oven at 5 in the morning, a guy in an apron, bread. That word is wired into dozens of other things you already know, and any one of those wires can pull the memory back up later. Baker, as a surname, gets none of that. It's not connected to anything. It just sits there, alone, with a single thread tying it to a face you met once. Cut that one thread, and it's gone. No backup path. No related concept to stumble into it from a different direction. That's the uncomfortable truth about names in general. They're not meaningful. They're labels, arbitrary strings of sound that could belong to anyone. Your brain has spent your entire life getting extremely good at storing things that matter. Patterns, relationships, cause and effect. A name, by itself, doesn't tell you anything about the person attached to it. So your brain, quite reasonably, treats it like noise. This is why you can recall a stranger's entire life story from a 5-minute conversation, but blank on their name within seconds. It's not a flaw in the system. It's the system working exactly as designed, on information that was never built to survive it. But there's a second problem, and it's arguably worse, because it means the name was often never stored at all. Picture a work meeting, where everyone goes around the table introducing themselves. You're 4th in line. The first 3 people say their names. Do you remember any of them? Probably not. And researchers have known why since 1973, when Malcolm Brenner ran a simple experiment. He had participants read words aloud from index cards, one after another, then tried to recall the full list afterward. The words spoken right before each person's own turn were remembered dramatically worse than everything else. He called it the next-in-line effect. Psychologist Charles Bond dug deeper into it in 1985, and along with Adnan Omar in 1990, confirmed what was going on underneath it. It isn't that the information gets forgotten later, it's that it never gets encoded in the first place. The instant you know you're about to speak, your attention gets hijacked. Your brain redirects almost everything it has toward rehearsing what you're going to say and managing the low hum of social anxiety that comes with performing in front of people. Whatever happens around you in that window barely registers because there isn't enough attention left over to register it. An introduction is a next-in-line moment in its purest form. Someone says their name, and in that exact half-second, you're already thinking about what you're going to say back. How you'll respond. Whether your handshake is too firm, whether you look distracted. You are, ironically, so focused on making a good impression that you fail to absorb the one piece of information you actually needed. So put those two findings together, and you get the real explanation. Names carry almost no built-in meaning, which makes them hard to hold on to even under perfect conditions. And the moment you're handed one is usually the worst possible moment for your attention, because you're mid-performance, worried about yourself instead of listening to them. So put those two findings together, and you get the real explanation. Names carry almost no built-in meaning, which makes them hard to hold on to even under perfect conditions. And the moment you're handed one is usually the worst possible moment for your attention, because you're mid-performance, worried about yourself instead of listening to them. Let's put a face to this. The man who never forgot a name. On the night of July 23, 1958, a magician named Harry Lorraine walked out into a television studio audience with no script and no gimmick. He'd spent the pre-show mingling, asking strangers their names, nothing more. Then he was called up on stage for a live game show called I've Got a Secret. The host asked everyone whose name Lorraine had collected to stand up. Hundreds of people rose out of their seats. Lorraine pointed into the balcony. That's Mr. Saar. He moved to the next row. Another name, correct. Then another, and another, working through a crowd of strangers, like he was reading their names off a card taped to their foreheads. He wasn't. He'd met most of them for a few seconds each, hours earlier. Lorraine wasn't born with this. He grew up poor on the Lower East Side of Manhattan, struggled badly with reading as a kid, and had nothing resembling a gifted memory. What he had was a system he built on purpose, association by association, because a natural talent for names had never once shown up for him. His method boils down to something almost insultingly simple. Never let a name sit there alone. The moment he heard it, he forced it into a picture. Something absurd, something visual, something stitched to a feature of the person's face or a detail of the conversation. A name like Saar might become a picture of a saw cutting through the man's eyebrows. Ridiculous, sure. But ridiculous is memorable, and memorable is the entire game. He was applying Cohen's discovery decades before she ever ran her experiment. Turn an empty label into something with substance, and the brain stops treating it like noise. He went from a kid who couldn't hold on to a sentence of homework to a man Time magazine called the Yoda of memory training, appearing on The Tonight Show nearly 24 times, performing feats of recall that looked, to everyone watching, like magic. It wasn't magic. It was attention, deployed on purpose, at the one moment that actually matters. That's the transformation worth stealing. Not, get a better memory. Get better at the 5 seconds right after someone tells you who they are. Here's how you actually do that. Call it the Name Anchor Protocol, and it runs in 3 steps, all inside the first 30 seconds of meeting someone. Step 1. Capture. The moment you hear the name, say it back out loud. Nice to meet you, Marcus. This isn't small talk. It's a deliberate interruption of the next-in-line effect. Speaking the name forces your attention onto it for a beat longer than passive listening ever would, which is exactly the window where encoding either happens or doesn't. Step 2. Connect. Give the name meaning it doesn't naturally have. Link it to something concrete. A rhyme, an image, a person you already know with the same name, a feature on their face. Marcus with the sharp jawline, Priya who mentioned she just moved from Chicago. You're not memorizing a sound anymore. You're building the same kind of network Cohen found around Baker, except now you're building it on purpose instead of hoping it shows up. Step 3. Confirm. Use the name again before the conversation ends. It was great talking with you, Marcus. Every retrieval strengthens the pathway. A name you've used twice in one conversation is exponentially more likely to survive until tomorrow than a name you heard once and never touched again. 3 steps, under 30 seconds, and it directly targets the 2 failures that were sabotaging you the whole time: a meaningless label and a brain that was too busy managing its own nerves to notice it. Here's the part worth sitting with. The next time you forget someone's name, resist the urge to make it a character flaw. It isn't proof that you don't care about people, and it isn't a referendum on your memory. It's a predictable failure of attention in a system that was never built to hold on to arbitrary information without help. The fix was never try harder to remember. It was, give yourself something worth remembering. Names don't stick because you're impressive with people. They stick because you decided, on purpose, for 5 seconds, to actually be there. Funny thing about attention, it always finds room for what it decides matters. You just handed 10 minutes of yours to a video about the 5 seconds most people never bother giving anyone. That's not nothing. So try the trick you just learned, one more time, on this channel. Don't let the moment slide past without an anchor. Hit like, hit subscribe, and give your feed a reason to remember you were here.